Well, thank you everyone, and welcome to this very brief and straight to the point event today. The activity we're witnessing today would be the formal handover of the warehouse in a box for Abuja to SCMS, who will then hand it over to USAID, and then USAID will transfer it to PSM for custody until the government is ready to take it up formally. So it's going to be a very brief event, and so we're happy that we've had the pleasure of our activity manager from USAID, pharmacist Tunji Odelola here, and we would like to do some brief introductions. My name is EMA FM. I'm the Chief of Party for SCMS project.
My name is Olubanji Holmes. I'm the project manager, warehouse infrastructure, SCMS.
Tunji Odelola, USAID, Nigeria.
Suzanne Hoza, country director for GHSC, PSM.
Chris Evans, turnkey ISS project manager.
Uche Ubajaka, Grandslink local contractor.
Nikki Adilawa, GHSC, PSM.
Emmanuel Organa, local fund agent, WM, Global Funds.
Smart Aziz, PSM.
Gloria Ubu, GHSC, PSM.
Thank you very much. So for us, it's everything. And if you have your agenda, we'll just quickly run through the agenda, and we'll see how fast we go with this. First, of course, we have the arrivals, and guests have arrived, and we've done the introduction. We were hoping that more people would come from the mission, so those who haven't seen the warehouse would have the opportunity for a tour. I guess they will do that some other time when they come in. And then after that, there will be a brief speech, and then the speech by IHS, the handover of the documents, and then we'll do the signing of the PODs and so on, and then the mission would respond to the speeches, and then they will hand over to PSM for a vote of thanks, and then we'll take a group photograph. The group photograph, we could take it in two ways. First, we'll take it here with the background of the warehouse inside, and then we'll take it outside with the complete warehouse as a backdrop. So we'll go a bit further back. So let me start by formally again welcoming you all, and to say it's my pleasure to finally get to this stage where SCMS is handing over, or rather is receiving this warehouse from the contractor, IHS, and in turn handing it over to USAID, the funder, as well as the Global Funds, the co-funder for this warehouse. It's been a long road, I would say. It's a long journey, and I wouldn't like to recap the journey so far at this stage because we know the story and so on. But what I'd like to do is to seize this opportunity to give credits to those who have played different roles to ensure that we are at this stage today. This landmark achievement is not something that is, and I'm sure when USA comes up to talk, they will be able to tell you a bit more about the expectations of this. Just to highlight that this is the first of the two that will be handed over. The one in Lagos is also continuing. We hope that we'll conclude it before November 18, when I should be leaving, so that we can complete hand it over and I can go home and sleep soundly and so on. But today I'd like to acknowledge the different groups that have helped to make this a success. The first group I'd like to acknowledge will be the government of Nigeria. The Federal Ministry of Health has done quite a lot helping to get this to this point. Starting with the former Minister for Health, Professor Yebuchichukwu, who led the process for approving and getting the FCT, Federal Capital Territory, to approve the initial 200+ million naira that was the fees that had to be paid for this. So he worked very well, and we want to appreciate him for that. After the fees were paid and so on, we thought we were going to start work, but then we couldn't start work because development control said you needed the building permit before you can start building. And so Professor Nyebudichukwu had left the ministry, and so it was now, how do we get this done? So several back and forth, and finally, I'd like to appreciate Mr. Linus Awite, MNI, who we met in the hallway and said, this is what is happening. The US government is pulling out of helping Ministry of Health because people have refused to do what you're supposed to do. And he said, what is that? And we said, you needed to pay 18 million to development control so they can give approval to start building. And 2 weeks later, that money was paid. And so we give credit to Linus Awite for making this happen. And so, in continuation, you will find that there are several aspects in building this. As a fixed firm price contract, it was difficult to make changes or to have other things brought in or removed. And so we found that we needed to have an advocate that would help us understand and have certain things approved to be able to get us to this point where we succeed, knowing that we are all working together to build. And that advocate we have is in the person of our activity manager, Tunji Zing. I want to give him credit for the push, the pull, the tugging, the cajoling, and so on that has seen us get to this point where we were able to get the final documents to hand over. Of course, there are many staff that played a role in this place, and it would be nice to also recognize them. Nika was the lead staff when she was with SCMS, seeing this process through. And so it's natural that she would be able to transition. When she transitions to SCMS, she would be able to continue. So she knew when this started, so she knows the behavior of the warehouse, if you put it that way, and so knows how to handle it. And so we are quite certain that when you're handing something over, so you're handing it over to somebody who can take it effectively. Banji is another person that we need to give credit to, because Banji was hired to manage this process of the warehouse, but then we realized that he had a lot of skills that could also help in the project. One, we were refurbishing other warehouses, and so he came in handy. So we could now send him to go and be sure that those warehouses we were refurbishing were being correctly managed. Gombe, Sokoto, even with the task order 4 warehouses, Kano, Mina, Enugu, and Warri, he did quite a lot, jetting through all those places to be sure. And I see him as a valued person that would continue to ensure that all those warehouses where we stock commodities, where US government stores commodities, that he ensures that they maintain this certain structural integrity that will ensure the commodities are fine. So we give him the credit. But we also give IHS the credit. Turnkey Solutions, IHS, and so on, the work they have done in managing this process and guiding it and so on is worthy of commendation. And today we are sitting in this place and looking at this structure the way it is. But we also want to give thanks to the local content engineer who made this possible and putting up this place. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Uche, who is the local content engineer, who worked very hard to get this forward. I know at some point we may even quarrel and say, listen, it's like you're not even moving. You're just taking your time and so on. But those of us without structural engineering eyes wouldn't know what is going behind the scene. So I want to say a big thank you to them. And our home offices, we had Mirella who managed this contract. And now my supervisor, Marilyn, Nogora, who's been in there, she's done quite a bit in ensuring that this works out very well. I also have to mention Patrick Detendo from Global Funds, is there. He did quite a lot in also supporting this project, and we need to give him credit for that. Finally, we have the letter of certificate of habitation. That's why we're having this event today. For this certificate of habitation to happen, it took 4 months from the moment they submitted it to all the work and so on. Those who may not know why it took that long, at one point, there was a clean sweep of all the leadership in development control. So new people came on board, and for them it was like, well, we have to do everything afresh. But that's working in Nigeria. And so in situations like that, you have no choice but to work with it. But we are glad that they were able to issue this, and today we are here. So I want to specifically single out Engineer Sagir, who is the Assistant Director for Inspection South. He did a lot. He put a lot in place. He was a new person, and I remember we said to him, he said, "Don't worry, we will do it. We even need to go and inspect." And I arrived one day, I said, "Okay, are you ready to go and inspect?" He said, "Yes," but they didn't have a vehicle. We got a vehicle and brought them here, they inspected. He told me, he said, "I like what I see. Tomorrow we will work on it." This was a Thursday. He said, "Tomorrow we will sign that. We'll get it ready and you sign." The next day was Friday. We got there. Everything was ready. But the director to sign was not there. He said, "Don't worry. Monday it will be ready." And Monday it was ready. He sent it to IHS. So I want to appreciate him. And I want to appeal that our activity manager Tunji should talk to the mission director, draft a letter, and say thank you for what you have done to ensure that this happens, and we didn't take that much time. So that's what I want to say from me, and I think that is a good way of saying thank you to everybody. We have a completed project, a completed thing here, and we hope that it will be put to good use eventually, and that the dream that the mission had in initiating this in the first place will materialize to the benefit of the country, Nigeria. Thank you all very much. And so I would invite a representative of IHS, Turnkey Chris, to come in and then make his brief comments. And then after that, we will unveil the documents and so on. He will tell us about the document, we'll unveil it, and then we'll do the signing. Chris.
Tunji, Yemi, Susan, and Nikkei, and all the ladies and gentlemen. I want to cut it short. You duplicated what I wanted to say, and I need to highlight a few things as well. I first want to apologize for Elaine Ellison, our managing director, that's not present. This is the where he is present, but unfortunately his visa stamp at the embassy is still in waiting for the past couple of weeks, and otherwise he would have been here. The same Arno of Resolve, the managing executive, he also said apologies, he would have loved to be here. As a great moment, as a project, our first project that was done in Nigeria, and it was done with teamwork from the beginning to the end. I spent lots of time with Nikkei as our point of contact at SCMS. And Nikkei, I want to say, and we said it before, thank you for the directions from your side to make things faster, but also very professional and efficient. I met a lot of people in Nigeria during this time. I feel like Nigeria, Navi. And Uji, as the main building contractor, you went the extra mile. It was nice working with you, and we haven't finished yet, and I'm looking forward to the next one. That's in the final stage at the moment. Uji went during hours, after hours, we worked through things to get things done on time, and I appreciate that. Banji was the one from SCMS side with whom I worked very, very closely, in OCD now as well, and I learned to get to know in a better way, much better than what my first impression was. And I think you are one of my brothers that I'll take with me to war. Thank you, Banji, for your support and your advice that you've given at many times at the right time and at the right place. There were many times that, Tunji, that you came on board not to interfere, not to interrupt, but to be very interesting and to be very supportive. And I appreciate that. It was done very well. So from TIS, IHS side, it's a privilege to say that we have concluded the warehouse in a box in Abuja, and it's an honor to do it as a first project, as I said, in Nigeria, as the 14th warehouse that we've done. And Yeme, it's my privilege then to do the handover of the documentation. And I think the most important at the moment is the long-awaited certificate for fitness and habitation, which is the bottom line for everything. Thank you very much. It's my honor to pass on to you. Okay, is there a specific ceremony now, or do we do the rest?
Yes, the next thing would be to unveil this. So I would like to invite Tunji, please come in, and Chris, you'll be here. Tunji, Chris, they made at the corner, Tunji in the middle, and so on. So we'll hold this and then unveil it. Right. So these are the documents that we have, and we have the certificate of habitation that is there from the AMAC, the Development Control section of AMAC, and so on. So we will now go into commence the signing. So I would ask Chris, we can leave this to them. So I would ask Chris to tell us what it is that you're giving us and what we're signing.
These two documents. The first one is the practical completion of the warehouse in a box, which entails the warranty. Warranty first for the first 12 months, and then the latent defects period of 5 years. So I'm so glad to say that for the next 5 years, I'll still spend a lot of time in Nigeria. So this is the first document.
So Nika would be with you every day of that period.
The second one, the sign of document that includes all the construction and equipment list of things required according to the bill of quantities. That's the second document. And then after that, just as part of the handover, is there's 2 volumes. The first volume is, well, the 2 together. They consist of the documentation. To start off with the emergency telephone numbers, or not emergency, but telephone numbers where there is to communicate with whoever that was involved in construction in different ways in the warehouse. There's an electrician needed, a plumber, there's all the numbers are there, all the emergency numbers in case of fire. And then all the documentation in terms of the manuals of the different equipment, the tests that was done on the concrete, the steel, paving blocks, that's all included, and also the asphalt drawings are also included in the document. So
I see you have a flash drive.
then the flash drive includes so much more of the same material. The material that's here is all included on a flash drive. And then there's a video, for example, because one of the more complicated things are to operate the security system, the CCTV. So the video gives a brief layout on how to work from step 1 to the final product, and how to manage the whole CCTV system. Lastly, there is the fire safety logbook, which is a requirement from the Abuja fire officials to be completed on a regular basis and they will come to inspections. So from my side, I think this is briefly the lump sum of what is in front of us. And then I and Nika will work on the plan on the details, what may be required more, or now we can take it further.
Thank you very much, Chris. So now we will pull out the documents for signature. I think the envelope, the ones with the corrected things, yes. Just like the 3 years. Yeah. There are 3 copies of each, and so we will sign 3 copies each, and the mission will take one, IHS will take one, SCMS will take one to send back to you. So this one, there is the IHS section, there is the USAID section, there is the SCMS section.
I'm not making a speech right now. On behalf of the USAID, I am signing these documents and ultimately the passing make sure that everything that we do and will get on to us correction of the estimates and that. I think we've come from so that note.
Because this one has more structural things, over to USAID because USAID having some work on behalf of SCMS and then also handing over the signed document. Signed document.
Thank you very much, EMA. Thank you, Chris, and Uche and Banji, who are what I would call the technical crew to make this possible. Let me first of all start by saying a very big thank you to everyone at different levels that have been involved in this project. I was fortunate to get into USAID just as this project was being conceived, and it looked impossible at that time. In fact, I remember one of the former SCMS country directors at that time was quite emphatic that he did not think we could pull off something like this in Nigeria, given the climate and how things work. So I give credit to my predecessor in USAID, who incidentally now is my boss, Kelly, because she pushed and shoved and knocked on doors to get us the funding to build this. At the same time, I'd also like to appreciate the Global Fund. At that time, the team that was managing and responsible for this was Colette and Patrick. And both of them went to lengths to make sure that we could get the funding to do the foundation, since we cannot use US government funds for laying concrete. And that collaboration is why we're here today. Let me say that even though this is a small ceremony, it's very significant. Right now, the government of Nigeria does not have a farmer-grade warehouse. This is the first of its type that is being owned by the government of Nigeria and not a private sector person. And I give credit to all these people I've mentioned and the others that will also be mentioning. Most people will say we have a warehouse in Oshodi, but the warehouse we have in Oshodi is actually World War II ammunition bunkers. Those who are Nigerians will remember this. I think it was in 2004 or something when they had this big explosion at the Ikeja cantonment. And a lot of buildings around there was damaged, but those structures did not move because they were rock solid. Their concrete is almost 1.5 inches. I think Uche did some work there, so he will appreciate what I'm talking about. So they're not warehouses, they're not farmer-grade warehouses. They're warehouses that were converted to medical stores. And for a lot of us, it was disappointing to visit other African countries and see farmer-grade warehouses that are government-owned, and then come back to Nigeria and the best we could show was Oshodi. So this was what provoked some of us to say, let's make this happen in Nigeria. And it's been long. This project was supposed to have been completed 2 years ago, but we're here, and that's what's important. I want to thank EMA in particular, because if anybody has been through a lot for these warehouses, it is EMA. I think at a point in time, if he saw my number on his phone, his heart would skip a beat before he answered. I know my calls have that effect on Nike when she was managing here, and every time I call her, I say, what is it? I say, I just want to find out. And we've been through a lot. We have been through a lot, but I think we should all be proud of ourselves and give ourselves a pat on the back, that this is actually here. The testimony of here is this: every time there's a high-profile visitor now, either from UNFPA, from Global Fund, from DFID, once anybody is visiting on health, everybody wants to visit the warehouse. In fact, the last request we got, my boss Kelly said, there's nothing in the warehouse. What do they want to go and see there? It's an empty warehouse. And I said, we have nothing else to show as far as the national supply chain in pharmaceuticals is concerned. But I'm proud to say that in another month and a half, this place will be almost full. And that's when the real work will start. When I see things like this, I tell people this. I said this, Nike remembers, at the commission in the groundbreaking in Lagos. I want my son to drive past this place with his kids in the car and tell them, your grandpa made that possible for Nigeria. And I'm saying that to Yeme, I'm saying that to Uche, I'm saying that to Nike, I'm saying that to all of us here. Your kids will drive past and they will show their kids and say, your grandpa or your grandma made this happen. And for me, that's what this job is all about. The fact that through this, we may avoid some of the things we've seen in the past, where patients are getting expired drugs, where patients are getting drugs that are not expired, but because they were not stored properly, it's not efficient. And for me, as a pharmacist, that's one of the things you want to avoid. At the end of the day, all this will be meaningless if child mortality rates is still increasing, if mothers are dying when they give birth, if HIV/AIDS patients are not getting their drugs, then this is just show. And I'm glad that this will not be show. We will make this happen. Let me also say that a lot of what we see here, this is just the first step. And we expect PSM, who's going to now be responsible for this place until when the government takes over, to do a thorough walkthrough with Chris and Banji to make sure that everything is in place so that they will not have to use those emergency numbers unnecessarily. In addition to that, we're going to have a formal ceremony. I really wanted this to be the commissioning, but we can't do that now because SCMS is closing out, IHS needs to leave the site, EMA wants to go home for Thanksgiving, so we've got to do what we've got to do. But I would like to ask that when we have the formal commissioning, it would be fantastic if all the people in this room can be there. Because a lot of the things that have been said here need to be said publicly. One of the persons in government that I really appreciate, and I will make sure she's there, was the former Director of Food and Drug Services in the Ministry of Health, Mary Okpasheyi. We visited Uganda together and she walked into the warehouse and this woman walked out and her shoulders sagged, and we got in the car and I said, "Ma, what's the problem?" And she looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "How can Uganda have a warehouse like this and we have nothing in Nigeria?" Which was one of the things that pushed us to say, let's get this started. And when we started this, she broke through every door in the ministry that needed approval for anything. She woke people up at night, but she's retired now. And when I went to visit on Friday and I put up the pictures on Facebook of our visit, she called me and she was so excited and said, "Oh, Lagos is almost finished." So I said, "Yes, Abuja is finished." So she said, "When is the commissioning?" I told her, I said, "You can be sure you will be there." So we'd like for all of us to be there and to really appreciate what everybody has done. So on behalf of USAID, we accept finally the Abuja warehouse in a box. And like my colleagues in Ministry of Health will say, the warehouse is now out of the box. It's no longer in the box. We have unpacked it. We have unfolded it. So it's out of the box. It is ready to be used. And Susan, you have the rest of the work to do. I don't envy you, but I respect you. Because what is ahead, if you have a drink with the man, he can tell you what passed, then what is ahead is a piece of cake. No big deal. No pressure. Okay. So, on behalf of that, I'd like to thank everybody, and I'd like to ask Susan to I will take possession of the legal documents while you take possession of the other documents and hand over to your people to go through with the final work. When it is time for the handover to the ministry, I would like us to make copies of this so that we can hand a full set of this over to the Minister of Health. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tunji. I'll invite PSM to say a few words and give us a vote of thanks. For Susan.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm really here really to take the baton from all the work that everyone has done so far for PSM to take this warehouse and move it forward into the next era of global health supply chain for Nigeria. There's a place in my heart for SCMS here for several reasons. One, I was most recently country director of SCMS in Ethiopia. And so I come here with a warm spot in my heart for everything that SCMS has done, and worked also with IHS and Resolve in Ethiopia, but we did not get to, we've built. We talked about it, but we've built 2 here. And I have inherited a great staff from SCMS, and Nikki has done a great job to bring this to fruition, as well as the rest of the team. So I would just like to say thank you and congratulations to everyone at SCMS, and wishing us all good luck as we move forward with PSM.